Hello again, and a very warm welcome to Sweet Omagh Town Internet Radio, our weekly podcast where we talk to you about the great and good of Omagh. And by the magic of radio, I hope to talk to my co-presenter, Declan Forde. Hello, Declan. Hope you hear us in Mountfield.
I can indeed. You know, I'm sitting on it's a cold, miserable, drizzly, rainy, wet evening. And you know, I close my eyes and you know where I am. I'm sitting at Rogie, looking out on the ocean. I close my eyes and there's a pina colada in my hand and the sun is beating down. And then I open my eyes and waking up and suddenly realise it's you on the other end of the phone.
The only thing is, if you took yourself off to Rogie on a wet, cold winter's night like tonight, there'd be a couple of guys with straitjackets trying to follow you and trying to talk you out of going there. Don't cross the border, Mr. Forde. Don't cross the border.
Father, dear father, come home, as the old song says.
Aye, oh no. Strange times.
Oh, no. Oh, for goodness sake.
But anyway, I was telling you, I was up around your little part of the world there one day last week, up in, you call it Magherafelt.
Oh, don't mention Magherafelt to me.
Aye.
Boys, who? Magherafelt.
It was a beautiful part of the world, and
right.
Steve Gallen was right at the very bottom of it. Beautiful farm down there. It was just well off the road, and I had a lovely chat with the farmer up against the gate. He and I got chatting as we normally do. And he recited some Marshall to me. I was telling him about your little poems.
Yes.
And then he was on about this whole pandemic and lockdown and sad feelings and stuff. And he mentioned his grandfather, who he actually never knew, but his father always spoke very highly of his father, obviously. Right. Saying in the early 30s, when things were very tight, he says, the whole year's crop of potatoes were dug and they were brought into the square, town square in Magherafelt, just in the very square. And he says, nobody even asked the price of these potatoes, and they got soaked all day and sat about all day till dark and headed home. And he said halfway through the road, but to pull up that big hill, the horse couldn't pull the potatoes. And
right.
Just literally, nothing else they could do at that time of night was just literally dump the year's supply of potatoes on the side of the road. And they got back in, and the father said, his granny, whatever it was, he says, we'll start again. And that's what he says. And start again they did, he says, and the next 2 or 3 years, he says, well, it wasn't nice to see war breaking out, he says, but that gave them, the farmers were getting incentive to provide extra food and things, and prices got up. And he says, you know, we thought my grandfather always says, you know, all you can do in a thing like that is just stop and start again. And maybe there's a lot of similarities in what people are going through maybe at the minute. Maybe you just have to stop and maybe start again. Don't know.
We have to recalibrate the way we think, you know. I would fully agree. Yeah. I would fully agree, you know. But when you were talking about potatoes, it brought me back to my youth. Did you know that I was once gainfully employed by the co-op? And the late Jimmy McGinn was my supervisor or my manager or my boss. And me and another young fella, our job morning and noon and then into the evening was weighing potatoes. And that, you know, behind the co-op, opposite the Sacred Heart.
Yes, I remember the co-op, and there Eddie McGinn was the manager there.
Yeah, Eddie McGinn was there, and Terence McGarvey
would have been
involved as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think there was an Eamon McGinn as well.
Eamon would have been there as well, yes. It would have been, yeah.
Well, I was there, that was my job, weighing potatoes. And I remember one day, me and the young fella I was working with, we killed ourselves and we weighed every potato. And there wasn't a potato left in the place.
Right.
Oh, I tell you, the feeling of pride. It was a bit like that. Did you ever see Cool Hand Luke?
Yes.
You know the scene where he eats the 50 boiled eggs?
Boiled eggs, yes, and walks away.
Well, I felt similarly. I felt somewhat like that after weighing every potato in the place.
Well, Declan, there you are. I bet
what an achievement.
Were they in brown paper bags in those days? I imagine they were.
They were indeed, and you just had the wee scales.
Yes,
and you wait for
£2.
The click, and that was it.
Great, wasn't it?
Oh, Lord save us. And then you mentioned the place called Magherafelt. I'd lived there prior to coming to Omagh. And I remember I worked in the VG store. And my one ambition was to get a shop coat. And they had no shop coat for me. And I was just broken hearted because if I had a shop coat, I was an employee.
Right.
And I can remember that me cut to the quick that I had no shop coat. So and all I did was lift stuff out of vans and put it into not even I didn't even get into the shops, the shelves. I was in the store lifting boxes, as they taught me to say in Marvel, instead of boxes.
Yes.
So that was my youth. That's how I gainfully was employed. It made me what I am today.
Had you colour in mind? Were the status and the colours of where you went?
There was a dark blue one, but I think the one that you needed was the white one.
Yes.
No, but
do you know what?
Never got it.
That reminds me, when I started working in the company that I worked with all my life,
yes,
they had 3 car parks, right?
Right.
The furthest away was for the poor manual workers who worked in the place.
Right.
And the second one were for what we called the blue collar workers, the guys who aspired to be the front car park workers.
Right.
And then the front elite was for the gods,
Oh yes, for the shiny cars.
Shiny cars and the shined up cars and Rover 2000s and all that bits and bobs, and then the wee Mars 1100s and all were further back down. But everybody knew their place in those days. You didn't go into the middle car park, Little
Did you ever get to that car park?
Eventually, I get there now because nobody else is in the whole place.
There's nobody else working there.
And I get to the
this empty car park in dead of night.
I get to the disabled zone now. God forgive me.
Haven't parked your bicycle.
Oh, God, Declan, stop it.
For goodness sake.
Change time.
Weren't we easily pleased?
Well, easy amused, that's right. And easy, when people were in those days, they gave you anything on your money. That was going to make you're going to feel better because you got 10 steps closer to the car park or the back door or whatever.
Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, they knew how to play in people's sense of importance.
Oh, status, yes,
status, hard to whack.
Anyway, about our little book launch, Mr. Forde, this is what we're going to talk about this evening, if you have time to talk to me.
Yeah, indeed, yes.
I suppose you remember because you were there on Saturday.
Indeed, I was.
And it went very well. Generally, I think,
Look, it was a first, and we are doing visual internet radio.
People will not only hear us now, but they'll also see us as well.
But this is a spoiler alert. If you're shocked by what you see, just keep the sound on and turn the screen black or turn it round. They might be able to cope with us.
Well, but we warn, viewers may find some of this,
That's right, distressing.
Yes, please look away. Or flash photography is used in this or whatever.
That's it. That's it. Yes.
Oh, God.
Or people of a nervous disposition.
Yes, exactly.
Or people with taste.
Anyway, it's the wonders.
Wasn't it? It was a great conversation.
Excuse me.
I couldn't really believe we were talking to 2 great musicians. One was, of course, our own
Tom Sweeney. Yes, of course, yeah.
In Omagh. And the other was Mick Maloney, banjo player, former member of the Johnstons in Bangkok.
Yes.
Wasn't it incredible just to link into the 2 musicians, and then they entertained us with songs and stories, and they bounced off each other. It was like ping pong.
It was great, the fact that 2 guys like us with little or no experience, and only for Jonathan in Belfast maybe, who was coordinating the whole thing, it actually worked with 3 mobile phones, 2 mobile phones and a computer, it was. But it worked. It's not wonderful, but it gives us maybe a bit of food for thought, Declan. But maybe we will continue interviewing if this lockdown continues. And maybe we'll ask people to come on and Zoom and pre-record it as well, because then we'll be able to add some more pictures and various things to it as well. But it worked, and let us know what you think. Sure, you can send us a wee.
I think if the folks out there, certainly let us know what you think. And it was nice to get involved because Maloney did the foreword to the book. Tom Sweeney has provided the music for some of the poems.
Yes.
And Mick explains, of course, in his interview with us, how he is involved with the orphanage and the Mercy Centre, that where all the proceeds from the book are going.
Very powerful, very, very powerful interview from him. I think his take on it was lovely, and I think they all enjoyed it. It was a bit of a killie, a bit of a chat. Okay, we're working.
That's exactly what Mick said at the end of it. He said it was just like a killie night.
Yeah,
and why don't we do it again?
Yeah, 5,000 miles is nothing. Do you understand? We can go around the world with this, and it's technology that you and I never grew up with. I think Mick said he came from the Stone Age to the digital age, and we all are at this stage at our age in lives.
Well, that's right. When you think of that, that in the space of a few generations, there's tremendous changes.
Yes. My first
But
recollection of
it was, I think, a different way to when we had plans to have put on 2 concerts to
Yes.
launch it, and of course COVID has kind of knocked us in the head.
Yes.
The books will be available in Boneyard Records,
Good, yes.
and may be available in 2 other local supermarkets, but we'll keep the folks informed through Sweet Omagh Town.
And just remind us of your own webpage, Declan, as well, when we're here.
Oh, yeah, and of course you get them directly from me. It's www.declanforde.ie. That's a website I have created, and then there's a link to the book, and then we will get the book to you.
Yes.
And as I said, it's £10, and plus the postage on top of that, and all proceeds and profits will go directly to the charity, the Little Birds in Bangkok.
And indeed for
the poem, it's a limited edition. I'm only doing a certain number. I'm only doing 1,000. I've numbered them. I've embossed them. And once they're sold, that's it. There'll be no second bite of the cherry or third bite of the cherry or whatever.
Just think, Declan, in years to come, these will go for sale in Sotheby's or whatever comes after us.
I don't doubt it.
This will be a genuine Declan Forde Sweet Omagh Town production. Starting bids at £8. Plus postage.
There was a great bunch of American wits used to sit in the Algonquin Hotel, I think it was in New York, and Dorothy Parker was the head of it, a man called Robert Benchley, Harpo Marx, who in real life could speak, and Alexander Woolcott, who was an American critic. And one day Woolcott was rather pompous, and he held up a book that he had just published, and Dorothy Parker was sitting beside him, and Woolcott held up the book and he looked at it lovingly and stroked its vellum and said, a Woolcott first edition. What could be rarer? And quick as a flash, Dorothy Parker says, a Woolcott second edition.
No interest. Hey, well.
Was that sharp? Oh, very, very, very sharp woman.
Oh, what? What do you talk about? All right.
Oh, for goodness sake.
For handiness as well, if people just want a book and they know us locally, our mobile number is 0777173257. Send us a text if you're around the town, and we'll get one out to you as well. And sure,
absolutely. And as I say, everything is going to a good cause. It would be a great stocking filler, and in the year that's in it, when I think our shopping habits are going to drastically change, it would be a nice way. You can rest easy that all the monies will go directly to charity.
Yes, there's nobody making on this. That's. You're right, Declan. I think Christmas is a write-off. I think people may as well face the fact that at the minute there's not going to be a Christmas in the sense that we would have known Christmases in the past here.
Well, it might do no harm.
Not a bit. I think,
let us get back to some kind of basics.
Yes.
And what is Christmas? Christmas is really just about friendship and family and feeling, just content.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, if we get back to that, I think we could be giving each other the most wonderful Christmas presents of the lot.
Yes. Things will ease. Excuse me. Things will certainly ease with time, and I think, despite what the papers may be saying, I think people should just arm themselves with enough news they need to hear to keep themselves informed, but no more. I think, you can really overdose on negativity and the fear of this. And I don't care what anyone says, I'm not medically qualified, but I know when you're afraid, your immune system goes down. And that makes it a bad situation even worse. Just, and there's a lot of stress and a lot of worry about this. But we'll get there. People have survived a lot worse than this. You and I have talked to people, Declan, who survived a lot worse than this from Omagh.
Yes, they've survived talking to us.
Excuse me, I'm out here in the dust in case you think of something else. I haven't been in the studio here for a week or so. I don't put on the heat because I'm too miserable.
Oh, absolutely. In the dead of winter, not even a match will be lit.
And I miss you in my garage, Declan. Look at the little garage. I thought.
Oh, well, I don't miss it or the mice. I'm sure there's not a mouse in that garage now at all. Every one of them have left.
Left, surely, yes.
In disgust.
The last one was wearing a wee mask. With the fingers of my rubber glove.
Oh, yes, for goodness sake.
God off. Anyway, so look, thanks for the chat, and we will play this little interview with you now. It lasts about 45-50 minutes, and again, thanks for your continued support here in Sweet Omagh Town, and thank you for the good wishes. Our little programmes go out and about the length and breadth of Ireland, but much further afield as well.
I was chatting to a man who said that his sister-in-law in Australia was listening to it.
And myself last week to a guy who said his two sisters in Canada were listening to it. And I don't want to start naming names because there's so many requests we get.
No, we'll not name names at all. But it is getting out.
Thank you for that. And say if you do listen to us and you're abroad, just give us a wee tick or a wee hello, just to let us know that you're there. It gives us some comfort. And don't be afraid to share these because we don't pay Facebook, we don't pay anybody. They don't promote it, so you have to actually try and promote it yourself and share it with your family and friends. If you could do that for us, it'll get it out a wee bit further for people.
It'll spread the word.
It will
sell a book.
It will indeed. And sell a book is right.
On that note.
On that happy note,
goodbye.
Till we see you again, take care of yourselves, and the best of luck with your book launch. Bye-bye.
Hello again, and a very warm welcome to Sweet Omagh Internet Radio. It's my privilege and honour to be here today. And joining me this afternoon, it's the 17th of October on a Saturday, is our co-host Declan Forde. Hello, Declan.
Donald, how are you?
I am very well, thanks. And this is the day we're going to try and launch your book, virtually, I suppose, for want of a better reason. And maybe you'll introduce our guests first as well when we're here.
Well, the special guest that I have brought in today is a mere 5,000 or so miles away, Dr. Mick Maloney in Bangkok.
It's great to be communicating with you all in these extraordinary times, you see, and I still can't believe we were able to do this. But here I am, and there you are. What was it I saw when I went to New York first time? I went into a bathroom as one does, and there was a sign on the wall that says, "No matter where you go, there you are." And here I am.
You're very welcome. Very welcome, Mick. Yeah. You and I met before some time ago when we recorded or done a concert in the Patrician Hall in Carrickmore for the Mercy Centre. Do you remember that? I'm not sure.
I certainly do. I certainly do, and I'll tell you why I do, because the concert ended around midnight, and then somebody said, "Well, we'll be up to the session now." And I said, "For God's sake, it's midnight." And then the person says, he looked at me in the eye, he says, "There's no law in Carrickmore," he says.
Man after my own heart as well, that's right. And of course, our own Tom Sweeney's there. Hello, Tom.
How you doing, boys? Are you all right?
Oh, we're good. It all works. This is a new venture for us all. We're all in uncharted waters, I suppose, but we'll get there. Okay, Declan.
Well, could we open up then talking about, you mentioned the Mercy Centre, Donald?
Yes,
Maybe, Mick, could you give us a kind of a summary of how you got involved in the Mercy Centre, and I suppose for the folks.
Well, I was on the way to Vietnam with an old friend of mine, and we decided to do a ramble in Asia. I'd never been to Asia. This was 1999, and we went around Vietnam, and I was fascinated with that country. And we went through Bangkok, and I stayed here for a few days, and I went to a bookstore, and I found a book called Welcome to the Slaughterhouse. And it was written by a man called Joe Meyer, Father Joe Meyer, I was to discover later, a Redemptorist priest in the missionaries over here. He's been here now for 55 years, originally from America. And he wrote this extraordinary book of the story of children in the slums of Bangkok that were rescued from the streets. A lot of their parents were dead or in jail or gone missing. And they'd fallen through all the safety nets that any child could fall through. Now, in Asia, the extended family would be the normal social unit, you might say. And generally speaking, people are taken care of. You know, there's no, for instance, now in these, and there's no hospices. And if you can keep the disease from going into that extended family, then things work. But sometimes people fall through that net. And this organization, which was called the Mercy Centre, and the book was about that, took care of those people who fell through all the cracks and ended up on the streets. Street kids, they might or might not be orphans. You wouldn't know if they were or not. And the Mercy Centre was an organization which was associated with an organization called the Human Development Foundation. And it was funded by various sources. And it was taking care of these kids. And it was a fascinating book. And I wrote to them, and I with the 3 words that'll get you into trouble anywhere, I said, can I help? And they didn't get back to me for a year. And they checked me out. And, you know, I was delighted about that. An adult wanting to work with kids should be checked out anywhere in the world. And we know that, I think, on the island of Ireland, we know it very, very, very directly that, you know, things can happen. And eventually they said it was all right. And I went there and I started working with them, first of all, as a volunteer, playing music, and then as a fundraiser. And then now, spinning the clock forward, I'm chairman of the American board that sends a lot of money. You know, it's a $3 million organization. What it does and what it has done, establishes schools. First of all, a place of residency for where kids can be safe, a safe house. And a safe house for boys and girls who are housed separately. And they're never out of sight of others. And there's no adults allowed to be with them alone that's not spoken for. So nothing bad can happen to these kids. And the second thing is health and education. A lot of the kids at that time were born with HIV. And there's no cure for that still to this day, no vaccine. But they're very good medications, and the kids were given medication, free medication. And the Thai government was very cooperative in that. But in any good society, you have to have schools, good schools. And what the Mercy Centre did was invent kindergartens in a society. I mean, Thailand's a fairly prosperous country by Asian standards, but a third world country by European and say standards of North America and Canada. Schools are the way out of the ghetto, or the hood, or whatever, or the slum. And they started 28 kindergartens and ran them. Now the city is more or less taking them over. And there were 400 children living there at the time. And I thought that an orphanage or a place for street kids would be a sad place. And it was exactly the opposite. The kids were well taken care of. They were safe. It was a safe environment. Nothing bad could happen to them. They left the institution to go to schools. They went back to it at night time. Their extended family was traced. Their identity papers were sometimes had to be found. You didn't know where the kids were from, even what country, because they were abandoned on the streets a lot of the time. And then links were set up with all the police stations, 28 of them, in a big city, Bangkok, 20 million people. And no kid was ever turned away. And I've been very proud to be associated with that. And it's given me an avenue into the culture that a tourist would never have. And I don't consider myself a tourist here anymore. We've gone for about 20 years now. And Declan, you've been out here, you've seen the place. And it's I suppose it's the gold standard of how you should take care of kids who've nowhere to go. And as Kun Usini Yangon, who was the executive director for years, one of the great authorities on HIV outrage, she said, and very eloquently, the Mercy Centre is everything for those who have nothing.
Great.
Sorry, Declan, you were there. Could you maybe explain what it was like for you and your experience with it?
It was a culture shock, and to be in, is it Clong Doi, the worst slum in Bangkok. Mick took me down to it. I think we were the only white faces there, apart from Joe Mayer, and it was a revelation. And I think Mick explained to me the mores of Bangkok, where I think, Mick, you said there were 3 existences. There was the Buddhist monks who came out early in the morning looking for alms, and then there was the kind of the daytime, almost 9 to 5 regular work, and then there was the nighttime economy. You know, and it's a 24-hour city, and it was amazing, and the people, they were as friendly, and met some great characters, and I would love to go back. The heat was a wee bit difficult, and then a monsoon.
it's the slums, and people like foreigners wouldn't be. They would never go to. They're very dangerous at the time, but we were kind of associated with the Mercy Centre. It's considered a holy organization by everybody. It's kind of off limits, and anybody who works at, you're protected by your identity and your association with the place. But the other thing that I loved about it, this is a Catholic priest, but he never tried to convert anybody, not one person. These are all Buddhist kids, and they never any attempt to convert them. And we started about 15 years ago an orchestra where they learned their own traditional and classical music, and the commercial music that's sweeping the whole world, which is the music of the West. That doesn't apply there. They learn their own music and they get a sense of identity. And especially when they learn their own dancing, it enables them, to have a pride in who they are. And when they go to play in rich people's schools, the kids actually envy these slum kids. And they got what Tom Sweeney, you'd know that you've been in Philadelphia a lot of times. In Philadelphia, they say they got attitude. And they have that attitude. They have a strut to them now. And I get a perverse satisfaction from watching these kids who have nothing go into rich people's school and strut their stuff, and the rich kids are left with their mouths hanging open saying, why can't we learn that?
Mick, tell me this, did you learn much about the music, the indigenous music yourself?
I did. I would never try to play it because it's very difficult. But they have instruments that are a bit like the one we play, Tom. They have the plin, and it's pentatonic. The five notes.
The scales are different. Yeah.
Sarah Maker would have sung a lot of those old songs now.
And the modes,
with the gap scale.
Absolutely.
So there's some similarities. Of course there are, but I would never try to impose my music on them because they need to learn their own first, But hopefully they'll be strong enough with that in the future that we could all actually have a collaboration. But you have to be strong, otherwise, it's not an equal playing field,
Would you find their music easy to learn, Mick, or to
No,
play? No,
not at all.
Complex.
Different system, and then when you get to the language, it's different again. I can speak the language to some degree. I mean, you have to learn the language as best you can, but no, it's different. It's that, as you said, the pentatonic, 5
the
notes.
modes.
We have the do re mi fa sol la ti do, and they don't have that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Can you be back with us?
Yeah, just back there to the Barley's tea.
Okay.
And
sorry,
that's a long way from County Limerick to Bangkok.
It is a long way from Limerick, and but the funny thing is with this social media, like we're chatting together today. I mean, in the weirdest way, the further away you are, it doesn't matter as much as it used to. You know how long it would take a letter, to get from America to Ireland, Tom, or Declan, and Jesus, look at us. We're chatting to one another.
It's incredible.
I didn't shave today, I mean, God, I'm still trying to get my head around this.
Yeah.
But these kids are amazing. They went from the Stone Age to the digital age. I mean, one of the things that it'd be fun, they're trying to now have workshops for iPhone addiction or cell phone addiction for the 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
And a society that went from the Stone Age to the digital age. Tommy, I was showing one of the kids a cassette, and they would not believe that music could be played on a thing that looked like that.
I think the kids here are the same.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, tell me this, Mick, about the Mercy Centre. Is there a limit to the age? When do they have to leave?
Yes, at 18, they're expected. Nobody would be thrown out, but you're expected to go and go off into the world. You would have a basic education, like a secondary education, at home, and you'd be off, and then you're into the world of the slums and a teeming city. And it's not there's people don't necessarily live happily ever after. I mean,
I understand that. Yeah.
And some go to university. It's just like life itself. You're given them, but they're given a chance.
Yeah.
And they're given a chance with as much of a level playing field as they can. And then, there's an organisation I'm involved in as well, Tom, called the Little Birds, and they took the name themselves. They're kids born with HIV, and they're going to live their lives, their adult lives, with that. and they exit from this institution where they don't think they're unusual, and they get the shock of entering the world where they're considered to be kind of like lepers in a way, they apply for a job, they do a drug test, and they found out they've HIV, and they don't get the job, or they're fired when and there's discrimination in all societies. Like, people still think if you shake hands with somebody, that you're going to get it, and so they have to enter a new phase. So a few of us got together, and we got a house that could be a central place where they could still meet, because they're scattered all over the big city, and they're working these menial jobs, and they can get together and have workshops how to live with AIDS or HIV, and how to have a family. And if you meet somebody you fancy, I mean, how do you get to the point, oh, by the way, and the second date, I have HIV, is there going to be a third date? I mean, the things that we take for granted. And I tell you, that's why I might have a broken hip right now, but I don't complain. I have no reason to complain. Right. These kids are heroes. They really are.
Still, it puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
Totally, absolutely. Yeah. And Declan, you've seen them all. Declan was out here and he knows.
Oh yeah. And those who look after the young adults and the little birds have AIDS themselves, and they are so dedicated to the care of these kids, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because that's what
I was going to say that.
The book is to raise funds for the little birds. Aha! Snap!
I was going to say that it's very highly commendable. Going to give.
Well, I've been doing Christmas cards every year since 1992, and decided to put them into the first 25 into a book. And the book is, as I say, numbered. There's 1,000 copies, and that's it. And there's a CD as well. And Seamus and Andy McGlone, two local musicians, and Mr. Tom Sweeney have played the music for us. Johnny McGurgan and Don McGurgan are the producers, the George Martins of Omagh. And so the book, it's being launched today digitally. This is a first for me. And a first, I think, for the whole lot of us. And maybe later on, I'll maybe do one of the pieces. And if Tom, if you could play a bit in the background. But maybe, Tom, would you give us a song?
Give you a song?
Give us a song.
I will, of course. I was telling Declan here, my lockdown project, I ended up doing a whole album of sea songs, doing all the harmony parts myself and so forth, just to kill the time. So I'll sing you a song. You might know this one. I don't know. It's a sort of a version I got of a song called "The Lowland Sea." I'll sing it for you anyway. Now, the good key. Now there once was a ship from the North America. The name that she would sail and by was the Golden Vanity. She was as fine a ship as ever sailed along the deep, as she sailed along the lowland, as she sailed along the lowland sea. And the first ship in view was the Turkish Reveille. Our captain, he was frightened that they'd sink us in the sea. Our captain, he was frightened that they'd sink us in the sea, and they'd send us to the lowlands, that they'd send us to the bottom of the sea. And the first to jump up was a little sailor boy. Said, Captain, what would you give me if I do her destroy? I'd give you a golden store and me daughter when on shore, if you'll send her to the lowlands, if you'll send her to the bottom of the sea. Well, he grasped up an auger and overboard jumped he. He swam right and left from the Golden Vanity. He bored 9 holes in the Turkish Reveille, and he sent her to the lowlands, and he sent her to the bottom of the sea. Then he swam back again to the Golden Vanity. Said, Captain, pick me up, for I am drowning in the sea. Oh, Captain, pick me up, for I am drowning in the sea. And I'm going to the lowlands, the lowlands, and I'm going to the bottom of the sea. Oh no, said the captain, sure that would never do. I'd never give me daughter to a sailor boy like you. I'd shoot you, or I'd stab you, or I'd drown you in the tide, and I'd send you to the lowlands, and I'd send you to the bottom of the sea. Well, if it wasn't for the love that I have for your men, I would do unto your ship as I have done to them. Yes, I would do unto your ship as I have done to them, and I'd send you to the lowlands, and I'd send you to the bottom of the sea. His shipmates picked him up, and 'twas on the deck he died. They wrapped him in his old grey shirt and sank him in the tide. They wrapped him in his old grey shirt and sank him in the tide. And they sent him to the lowlands, and they sent him to the bottom of the sea. Well, a curse upon this captain, wherever he may be, for the breaking of the promises he made so readily. Instead, he gave a sailor boy a lonely grave at sea, and he sent him to the lowlands, and he sent him to the bottom of the sea.
Whoop.
Oh, well done.
That was a veritable voyage of a song.
It was. You see,
Tell me this, Tom. Do you remember Davy Hammond's great documentary about Sarah Macomb?
I do.
Yeah. Is it true that Sarah Macomb sang morning, noon, and night?
Never stopped, yeah.
Never
I
stopped.
thought, but yeah, my mother was the same. They just sang all the time. And to Sarah Macomb, I mean, I remember my mother saying Sarah Macomb wouldn't know a folk song if it bit her. I mean, she just sang anything, you know. I'll tell you a great story when she was in the Daisy Hill Hospital in Uri on her last legs, you know. Liam Clancy came to call and see her, and he sort of figured he wouldn't see her again. He said, "Will you do me a favour, Sarah? Will you give us a song before I go?" When she sang Alexander's Ragtime Band.
The great Irving Berlin tune.
So that, you know,
a song is a song.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my goodness. Well, Mick, Frank Hart was like that as well, wasn't he? You know that there were songs knew no boundaries or borders.
Well, exactly, and God, it was amazing. Just as Tom was singing that song, my mind flashed back to Elkins, West Virginia, where you came many times, Declan, to an Irish music school that I was involved with there for 25 years. And one night on a porch, as I was going to bed, it was very late, around 4 a.m., I heard a woman on the porch, and there was about 4 people on. She said, "There once was a ship in the North America, and she went by the name of the Green Willow Tree, sailing oh the lowlands, low, so level and so low, and been sailing for 2 weeks or 3 when she was overtaken by the Turkish reveille, sailing oh the lowlands, low, so level and so low." Up spoke the captain to his gallant crew, "This Turkish reveille will soon cut us all in two, sailing oh the lowlands, low, so level and so low." Up spoke the cabin boy, up spake he, "What will you give me if I sink her in the sea? Oh the lowlands, low, so level and so low. I will give you gold, I will give you a fee, and my eldest daughter, your wedded wife, will be sailing oh the lowlands, low, so level and so low." Out swam the cabin boy and out swam he swam till he came to the Turkish reveille. Oh the lowlands, low, so level and so low. He took a little instrument made for the work. He bored 9 holes in the bottom of the Turks sailing all the lowlands, low, so level and so low. And some were wearing hats, and some were wearing caps. They all sought to stop those salty water gaps. Oh, the lowlands, low, so level and so low. Back swam the cabin boy, and back swam he. He swam till he came to the green willow tree. Oh, the lowlands, low, so level and so low. Oh, captain, let me on board, and be unto me as good as your word. Oh, the lowlands, low, so level and so low. Oh no, says the captain, won't let you on board, won't be unto you as good as my word. Sailing all the lowlands, low, so level and so low. Wasn't for the love of your daughter or your men, I'd surely do to you just what I did to them. Sailing all the lowlands, low, so level and so low. And out swam the cabin boy, down swam he. Farewell forever to the green willow tree. Sailing all the lowlands, low, so level and so low.
Great.
Once was the ship in the North America, and she went by the name of the green willow tree. Oh, the lowlands, low, so level and so low.
Yeah, man, my great
Oh,
version.
lovely.
That's lovely.
Version.
And Frank Hart was sitting beside that woman as she sang the song. Her name is Gina Dunlop, and she reworked the song, that you just sang. She found an Arkansas version of it. And the same story, of course. So that's how there's no boundaries. Once the music goes over the wall, you don't know where it's going to go.
Absolutely right.
And a good story is a good story.
That's right. Never spotted for the truth.
Speaking of stories, Declan, would you give us one of your poems now when we're here?
Well, I give the Cowboys Christmas, and if I could prevail upon Tom Sweeney, have you got a harmonica there by any chance?
I just happen to have one beside me. I haven't played this the last time you were here.
Right.
Okay.
Well, tell me when to play.
This is called the Cowboys Christmas. Do you remember when you used to go to Christmas Mass and you would see men leave their bicycles tied or outside? I'm thinking of Killyclogher Chapel.
Right.
And the boys standing outside smoking after Mass. In fact, once I saw men playing cards at the back of Killyclogher Chapel. But this is the Cowboys Christmas. So, Tom, if you can select your own key, and it's Home in the Range.
Do I play the start now, or you?
You just play this, and I'll jump in.
Okay.
Their bicycles lounged against the grey granite church, like spectacles propped on a poke bag shirt, as McCluskey and Kelly and John Francis Quinn teetered their way towards the warmth within. With their caps loosely holstered beside their hips, rustling spent bullets of snigged cigarettes, they were hitched to the pew by their brown wooden beads as their crab-apple thumbs gripped rosary. And while the wheezing harmonium whistled and played, these sons of the pioneers silently prayed. Corralled outside with their neighbours and friends, they cheerfully wished goodwill to all men. And then McCluskey and Kelly and John Francis Quinn saddled up and cycled back home to the range again.
Ah, well done.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Oh, we went in nostalgia.
Yeah.
If
Speaking
we
of
rehearsed, it would be dangerous.
Oh, no, shush.
the one of my favorites in your book, Declan, is the one of the Jim Reeves Christmas. Tell us about that one, would you?
Jim, well, that. Do you remember when we recorded it?
Very well,
You
yeah.
had a DVD of Jim Reeves looking down at us, and that put the wind up me. because if I'm going to use a Jim Reeves song, I want to get permission. And I have been to and fro between New York, Nashville, and London, between RCA, the owners of the words, the music, and the Jim Reeves recording. And eventually Sony gave me permission to use the Jim Reeves recording, just at the intro to the song and at the exit. And like when I grew up in Uri, Jim Reeves was a big part of our Christmas. We had the LP with Jim Reeves in the middle of a wreath.
Oh, I know it. We played it in our house too.
Yeah, and that came down in November. It was lovely. And every November, that would be played incessantly on the hi-fi set. And so the poem is just about a Jim Reeves Christmas and what it was like. My father, he was addicted to Gallagher Green cigarettes, and he would sit and he would tap the side of the brown vinyl chair as the Jim Reeves played. And so every time I hear Jim Reeves, I'm transported back, you know. But anyway, so that's the simple story. And a lot of the poems are kind of nostalgic. They're sentimental. This year's is different. In the year that's in it, I have come across a great quote by Oscar Wilde, and that is the idea behind the poem. But all will be revealed when the cards go through the post. But anyway, these books are £10, $10 or €10, and I have a website, www.declanforde.ie, and you can order it through that. And as I say, they're limited, and hopefully there's a number have gone over to the States already, over to America. So we'll see, and all the monies will go towards a very, very good cause.
Excellent. And to our regular listeners and viewers, you just contact the program itself on 0777173227, and we'll guide you then if you want to get one locally or post it to you as well.
Yeah. Well, I love Christmas, and I love songs associated with Christmas. And Mick, I believe you've got one up your sleeve.
Well, I haven't done it for a while now. Precisely last Christmas. I hope I remember it. It's a song I learned from a 78 recording in America made by the McNulty family. And the McNulty family, it was Annie Burke from Kilteven, County Roscommon, who emigrated to America and settled in Massachusetts, moved down to New York, and had two children, Pete and Eileen. And after the husband, John McNulty from Drumkieran in the County Leitrim, died, she was left alone, a single mother, and the Depression came along. And two children, and instead of looking for a likely lad, you know, that she could handle or taking in washing or doing anything like that, she decided that she'd become professional with her family. She went to the Brooklyn Academy of Music and said, would you hire the famous McNultys? Nobody ever heard of them. And they said, that sounds good. And she said, I'll put up the money. And she did. And for the next 25 years, they filled the Brooklyn Academy of Music twice a year, one of the great theaters in New York. And they made over 150 recordings for Decca and Copley and other companies, became the most famous Irish-American family in the history of Irish music in America, I'd say. The Flanagan brothers were maybe just maybe number two, but the McNultys were beloved. And I visited, the last of them was Eileen. And in 1977, on a February day, I went up to New Jersey and to Hoboken, and I met her and spent the day, and she gave me as a going away present her brother Pete singing Miss Fogarty's Christmas Cake. I don't know if you ever heard of Tommy Sweeney, did you?
I have.
But it was a fairly lethal concoction. And I'll see if I hope I can remember it. I'm playing this octave mandolin that was made in Ho Chi Minh City, and it's not the best of instruments, and I'll do my best with it. As I sat in my window last evening, the letterman brought it to me, a little gilt-edged invitation, single Hooley come over to tea. Well, I knew that the Fogarty sent it, so I went just for old friendship's sake, and the first thing they gave me to tackle was a slice of Miss Fogarty's cake, and there were plums and fruits and cherries, there were citrus and raisins, and cinnamon too, there was something like goats and berries, and the crust was nailed on the glue. There were caraway seeds in abundance, should work up a fine stomach ache. I would kill them and twice a curry, slice of Miss Fogarty's Christmas cake. Miss Mulligan wanted to try it, but really it wasn't no use. When we worked in it over an hour, but we couldn't get done a bit loose. Till Kelly came in with the hatchet, and Murphy came in with a saw. And his cake was enough, with the powers to paralyze any man's jaw. There were prunes and cherries, there was citrus and raisins and cinnamon too. Like cloves and berries,
and the crust was nailed on with glue. Oh.
In abundance, should work up a fine stomach ache, and 'twould kill them with twice of their weight.
There is no slice of this
Christmas cake. Miss Fogarty, proud as a peacock, kept smiling and thinking away, till she tripped over Flanagan's brogans, and she spilt the home brew in her tea. Ah, Gildooley, she says you're not eating, try a little bit more for me sake. And oh, Mrs. Fogarty, says I've had quite enough of your cake. There were plums and cherries, there were citrus and raisins and cinnamon too. Like cloves and berries, and the crust was nailed on with glue. There were caraway seeds in abundance, should work up a fine stomach ache, and put them in twice of the weight, nice of Miss Fogarty's Christmas cake. While Sweely was stuck with the conic, Declan Forde had a pain in his head, and Maloney lay down on the sofa, and he swore that he wished he was dead. Mrs. Murphy went into hysterics, and there she did dribble and shake, and everyone swore they were poisoned from eating Miss Fogarty's cake. There were plums and cherries, there were the citrus and raisins and cinnamon too, like cloves and berries, and the crust was nailed on with glue. There were caraway seeds in abundance, should work up a fine stomach ache, and put cinnamon twice up the rate, a slice of Miss Fogarty's Christmas cake.
Lovely. Well done. Well done. Thank you. You know it well.
Friday.
Yeah. Isn't it strange that Declan and I, as you know, Mick, have been collecting oral history for the last 25, 30 years, and we've gone around interviewing several people about their life stories. Funny, just on Thursday morning, I had to go to Magherafelt, Declan, your old town. At the bottom of Slieve Gowan Bray, I met an old farmer, an elderly farmer, who said he remembered his late father in the 1930s taking a cartload of potatoes into Magherafelt to sell them. And nobody, as he said, asked the price of them. But the poor horse on the way home couldn't pull the potatoes. So they had to literally in the middle of the night dump the whole straight out of potatoes and move on and start again. And what he was sort of referring to was this whole pandemic. He says, we will have to clear the decks and maybe start again.
Yeah, well, I think it has made us all look at life differently, hasn't it? You know,
that actually brings a song to mind. This is a song again that I recorded on the Songs of the Sea. It's the song. I suppose it talks about people being lost at sea and looking for the lighthouse. But I think what it's actually referring to is the whole, I suppose, the sea of life and people being lost. And I think with this pandemic, it's brought it to the fore. It's called, I think it's an old Methodist hymn or something. It's called "Let the Lower Lights Be Burning." You know that song? Brightly beams our Father's mercy from his lighthouse evermore, and to us he gives the keeping of the lights along the shore. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the wave. Some poor lost and struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. Dark the night of sin has settled, loud the angry billows roar. Eager eyes are watching, longing for the lights along the shore. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the wave. Some poor lost and struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. trim your feeble lamp, my brother. Some poor sailor, tempest tossed, trying now to make the harbor, in the darkness may be lost. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the wave. Some poor lost and struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the wave. Some poor lost and struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. Oh, it's a nice song, isn't it?
Lovely and simple. Beautiful.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I think it's some sort of a hymn, as far as I know. But I mean,
yeah.
But it's nice.
Yeah.
No, it's a lovely melody, you know. And I know, Mick, you're involved with the Irish Arts Centre. You're recording kind of from one continent to the next.
Well, you know, when I was in New York, you know, it seems like 1,000 years ago now. I did a lot of things for the Irish Arts Centre for, I suppose, 10 years in a row. And one of the last things I did for them was in early March, and then the whole city and then the country shut down for the likes of us, for gigs and any kind of live appearances, and we don't know when it's going to start up again. But they built a new centre, $61 million centre in New York. It's the talk of New York City, and you know, there won't be a live performance in it for God knows how long.
Unbelievable, yeah.
They won't be doing anything live before September of next year. But they didn't give up the ghost, and they've started a whole lot of online programs for their membership list, and maybe that will expand in the current circumstances. There's no light at the end of the tunnel yet, Tom. I don't know if it's the same, Declan, over.
There's nothing here at all. No work for anybody.
There's no word in it. So they've gone online and they've asked people like myself who've been involved in the centre for so long, would we do something? And they asked me, would I do a song a week? And I came up with the idea of a song or a piece of music a week. And then it seemed sort of amazing. Well, I can maybe get somebody in Italy like Tina Turgis, or somebody like Haley Richardson in North Carolina, or somebody like Brenda Castles in Dublin, or the Mulcahy sisters who were in Carrickmore that night, Louise and Michelle. And they've all said, God, yes. And we do one a week between, you know, a cast of characters changing all the time. John Roberts now is a great singer. You must have met him, have you? A great sea shanty singer.
I have, yeah.
Songs of Sea from upstate New York. He just did the Jolly Roving Tar and Get Up, Jack John, Sit Down with Me. In fact, I was working on it earlier today. And suddenly a whole new world of collaboration online with no audience. And, you know, I suppose all of us who were in the game, we've learned over the years to interact with audiences in our own way, and now there's no audience, and I suppose you're drawing on a new skill, really. But I mean, a bit of the old stage, you can visualize them there. I don't know what it's like for you, Tom, or you, Declan, singing or reciting, but I can still see them out there in front of me. And so one a week, and Declan, he volunteered to do the artwork. So every song's finishes with one of his illustrations. We just did one last week. It's online. Look at it, the Irish Arts Centre by Memory Inspired, and you'll see Loftus Jones played with myself and Tina Turgis and Billy McComiskey, and it ends up with a sketch of O'Carroll drawn in the County Tyrone by Declan to the whole world.
Brilliant.
So
you're international.
Ingenuity comes into play, and you do the best. You make the best of it. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Oh, for goodness sake, you know.
I love Songs of the Sea you're doing, Tom. That sounds like a great project. I'd love to hear more of them.
I mean, it was totally a lockdown. I had nothing to do, and I have a little recording thing. So I just recorded 20 songs, all the 4-part harmonies myself, and you know, but it killed the time.
For God's sake. But you've always been full. Every time I see you, you have a new project that you're I'm just telling Declan, I just recorded Paddy Cavanagh's The Great Hunger in its entirety. You know, are you serious?
It's 40 minutes long. I recorded the Ballad of Reading Jail by Oscar Wilde as well. Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake!
You killed the time.
I love that Thomas Ross. I'll never forget the first time you recited "The Man from God Knows Where," and God, I still remember. I mean, it was one of the great occasions. You still do that?
I do. It's a wonderful piece, you know.
It's one of your best ever, and you have the right accent for the job. I
Aye.
don't.
No, it's a great piece, you know.
Yeah.
Thomas
Oh,
Russell.
no.
I'll tell you a good story about that. I before Brian Friel, back years ago passed away, I wrote to Brian Friel and I said that I thought that it'd be a great play set around 1798. Imagine writing to Brian Friel. I was very young, and I said, you know, you could include the love affair between Thomas Russell, Mary Ann McCracken. You could include the 98 Rebellion. You could include the Heart Festival. It's got everything. And he wrote back to me and he said, before Sean O'Reilly passed away, himself and Brian Friel were working on a cantata based on that same period. Not a good one.
That's a good one. And you know what this, the whole lockdown thing, it's made me anyway personally realize all the things that I took for granted, you know, and that you can't take for granted. And every meeting now that we all have, they're precious times, and we take them for granted. Remember the Ewan McCall song, we wandered through our days as if they would never end. Always Beautiful. We imagined we had endless time to spend. We never saw the crossroads, and scant attention gave to landmarks on the journey from the cradle to the grave. Isn't that brilliant?
What a brilliant writer. Mike, do you remember, you talk about things, taking great things for granted. Do you recall a night, years ago, you and I and Tommy Sands sat outside a hotel?
Never forget it. But the Astor, it was the Astor
Milwaukee,
place,
was it?
Just a block up from the Park East in Milwaukee.
And we just sang for hours.
And we're telling lies for hours. It was a great night.
It was a great night, that.
It was. A night you wouldn't forget, you know?
That's right.
Oh, dear. Oh, no.
We sang the Buncrana Train.
Oh, you sang the Buncrana. I was just going to mention that, yeah. And I never heard it before, and I never heard it since. And you're not moved by an uncontrollable urge to sing it by any chance.
I don't know the words of it now, but when you hear this, I heard it recorded by the McPeak family back in the record made in the 1950s. And I met Francis McPeak and I said to him, that's a very strange song you recorded on your record, the Buncrana Train. He said, I tell you the truth, I say, the fellow who lived next door to us in Belfast was a jazz guitar player. And he used to go and spend his holidays in Buncrana. And he came back and he wrote that song and gave it to us, and we put it in a record. That's all I know about it.
do the verse. Come on, do a verse for us. If you
well,
can.
I can't remember all the words. Now some people like to have a swim while others like to row. Young people growing up in life according they will go. But if the evening does prove fine and does not threaten rain, then I prefer a trip to Fawn on the Buncrana Train. For Crockett is the driver and Boner is the guard. And if you have your ticket, all cares you can discard. Now be you fop or summer swell, to them it's all the same. For every man must pay his fare on the Buncrana Train. Still provocalists and localists and them that likes to sing. McGarvey will be surely there to dance a Highland fling. For singing and for dancing, to him it's all the same. For he's the sole musician on the Buncrana Train. Oh, for Crockett is the driver and Boner is the guard. And if you have your ticket, all cares you can discard. Now be you fop or summer swell, to them it's all the same. For every man must pay his fare on the Buncrana Train. So I can remember it, but this
and you know, I mean, we were singing. I found out later on the porch of the. It was a hotel, but it was also a service department building. Eileen McNulty died. Eileen McNulty died in that building.
She did not.
3 floors up there. She moved to be with her sister Patricia Grogan in Milwaukee when she got cancer, and she died. She died in a home hospice 3 blocks up from where we were singing that song.
Did you know that then?
Or three floors up. I didn't know that then. No, I went out there, and the next time I was at the festival, I went out a few days early, and I went to the room and kind of paid my homage to the room that
for
she
God's
had
sake.
rented, a little apartment.
I'll tell you another story. Many years ago, before she died, you know, I was doing a thing with Tommy and Liam at the Garden State Arts Centre in Jersey, the Irish Festival there. And Eileen McNulty was there. She was quite elderly. But you know what she did? We were amazed. She did a fantastic version of Master McGrath.
She did. Was Frank Patterson at that same concert? I had a
He
poster.
may have been. But halfway through the song, she did a commentary on the race between the dogs. And the band got faster and faster. It was absolutely brilliant.
Well, her brother Pete sang that. I have the 78th record of that. Master
Well,
McGrath.
she sang it at this concert, and she did a commentary, like a radio commentary on the race.
Oh, brilliant.
I don't know who wrote it, but it was brilliant.
Oh, my God. But jeez, we could go on all night, couldn't we?
I don't want to overstay.
And we did.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want
We
to
often did.
but I think we may wind this up because I think we're only allowed a certain time on Zoom. So,
All right.
but it's been really good. Declan, just before we go, could you just let us know where we can get this book again? And how
www.declanforde.ie, and go through that. You can get the book there. As I say, it's a limited edition, all numbered and embossed, and all my own work, the illustrations, the words, forward by Mick, music by Tom and Seamus and Andy McLaughlin, and produced by Johnny McGurgan, with your assistance, Donald. And all the proceeds will go to a very, very good cause, and will go directly to them. There's no middleman in this at all.
That's fantastic, Declan. Very commendable. Well done.
And Tom, good luck with the sea shanties.
Oh,
And
Mick, it's lovely to see you
again at some stage.
Sure, listen, we'll have to do a version of this. This is great crack, actually. And you know, it's not that different from an old Kelly house, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
There's so many songs and stories and poems and stuff.
Yeah.
Tom, before we go, can I ask you a favour?
Who, me or Declan?
Tom.
Yes.
At Stevie McKenna's funeral, you sang a lovely version of The Parting Glass.
Yes.
Wee bit before we go, could you just in memory of Stevie McKenna?
All right. Well, I'm sure.
Maybe Mick can join in as
Really?
well. I wanted just to say goodbye. Okay.
Lovely song. Now all the money that dare I spent it in good company, and all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all that I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. Now if I had money enough to spend, and leisure time for to bide a while, there is a fair maid in this town who sorely has my heart beguiled. Her rosy cheeks and ruby lips, I own she has my heart enthralled. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thanks a million.
My pleasure. Mick, lovely to see you again.
And likewise, and we'll have to do it again somehow.
Well,
Declan, that's your next project.
It was crack.
Okay.
It was crack.
Thank you,
Take
Johnny,
care of
for all your
yourselves.
work.
See you soon, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, Tom. Bye,
Thanks
now.
a
Bye,
million.
guys.
Mind yourselves. Take care.
Bye.
'Tis many's a gay night from dark till daylight I spend with people of high renown, but not in all their grandeur, and heaps to squander, my heart would wander for sweet Omagh town.